Welcome everyone to the Draw Control podcast. Today we are introducing a new segment called the Coach's Corner, which will be released every Sunday. In this segment, we talk to different lacrosse coaches across the country to get their perspective on the game. On our first edition of this segment, I am joined by the head coach of the USF women's lacrosse team, Mindy McCord. In her illustrious career, Mindy was named 8-time Conference Coach of the Year. Her teams have earned a combined 21 regular season and conference tournament titles. Her teams have set NCAA records for scoring offense twice, and she's developed 13 All-Americans and 26 All-Region selections. And when she was the coach with Jacksonville University, she led them to 8 NCAA tournament appearances and 2 Sweet 16 appearances. I'm very honored to have her on the podcast today. So, Mindy, thank you so much for taking time of your day and coming on. And how is everything going?
Awesome. Yeah, it's been really fun journey. So glad, that we're here and starting this inaugural season. And, it's hard to believe it's April already. I think in the lacrosse world, we're all like, wow, this season's gone fast. But we're really excited to be on here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way as a lacrosse media member, so it's not just the coaches and players. Now, your team is currently 11-3 at the time of this recording, and typically with brand new college lacrosse teams, the first season is sort of usually a rebuilding type season since there's so many new players learning a new system, but that seems to not have been the case with your team. So my question is, how have you tried to build chemistry between your players and ultimately what has been the key to your team's success this season?
I think being able to start a program from scratch certainly has its challenges, but also you're finding people that fit your culture. So we had a whole year under our belt being able to build our culture, recruit to our culture, and really find those trendsetters, those women that don't have to feel it, touch it, see it. They're your bigger picture people that say, I want to be the first at something. Those COVID years, I also think help people to reflect on more time. They weren't maybe getting the leadership roles they wanted. They weren't getting that playing time that they wanted. Now they get to pivot, come train, and take a leadership role. So I think that extra time was super beneficial to focus on how we learn about USF. And, there's a lot to learn. This is our first time at this place, all of us together. But then also, how do we create a team with standards, expectations, and a culture that's second to none? That's the glue, because we formed this team with, traditional classes, not just the transfer portal first. And although that was still very promising in the transfer portal, we made sure we had specific criteria to what we were looking for, because we knew, like at Jacksonville during those COVID years, when they got that extra year, we had like 19 seniors for 2 years. Like, that's such a unique situation. And no doubt that helped us trend in that direction. So I was like, well, if we could have a freshman class that gets the red shirt a year and then they get a fifth year, that could be a very similar situation. So we're younger on this front end, but I think down the road, you can create more retention, sustainability, and build a culture.
Yeah, and what's it been like being a part of the American Athletic Conference from the women's lacrosse side and just the competition you face each game? Because I know there was a little bit of a conference realignment that took place over the off season. So I was just curious about what your thoughts are on being a part of the new, I guess, AAC.
I love the American, it's still one of the top conferences in the country, even with, Florida pivoting to a new conference. And, it's great for us because we get to still play them, being in Florida. The conference has tradition. They have tradition of producing NCAA programs, whether it's Vanderbilt or Temple or JMU as a national champion. Florida was in that mix. Now you have these up and coming rising teams. So they're committed to this excellence in these traditional teams that have really been on the showcase of top lacrosse, and now they're still growing the sport and giving new teams an opportunity to compete on that stage and keep the RPI of the conference and elevate it. I think they're transformational in their leadership for what they're doing and how they're doing it. And, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Now, what are your team's goals and expectations for the rest of this season, and what do you think it's going to take for your team to accomplish those goals?
So for the rest of the season, we're in our fourth quarter. We divided our season up into quarters. So in our fourth quarter, it's be your best. And we just finished our third quarter, which was called the grind, because that's that going at the end of March into April. That's where everyone's, schoolwork starts to pick up and you get in more of that grind in your season. So our goals have always been to just focus one game at a time. Don't look too far in the past, don't look too far forward. Focus one game at a time and just compartmentalize the seasons of the season, right? Like try to focus on what we're trying to accomplish and building that chemistry together. We got to do that with a group of players last year, but we folded in, it was, I think, about 16 new players this year. So we almost had like two cohorts. So we've had to do still a lot of team building, a lot of team bonding, and our theme is together. So we are just trying to get more cohesive every day together to realize this game isn't won or lost by one or two people. And then we have a motto, with our cheer, which is, we're team one and we want to have big dreams. And so we have to keep dreaming that the process that we put in place with the right people deliver a great product. And that product is we want to contend for a conference championship. So in this fourth quarter, it's now be your best version of yourself. You've built these relationships, you're playing together, you're in the driver's seat, and keep executing your game plan. This team prepares so hard. Like I am not sure I've ever met a group of people. Like you might find, some players on a team, but this whole group dives into the game plan. They love film analysis. They want to be their best. And now we're in the time of our lives here to have, our last conference game, be competing for a regular season championship, having another non-conference game to play before we get into the postseason, which was one of our goals, was to be one of the top four teams to get extra playing time. When you're a young team, getting that postseason and getting to play longer is super beneficial. And we've tried to mimic that throughout our season. We went on a road trip that we had a Friday, Sunday game to kind of mimic what that conference tournament would look like and how we have to behave and travel on the road. So we've put them in all the situations to gain the experience. And then they had to put the results up on the board, and they've done a great job with that. And that's led us to being able to reach some of those goals and continuing to contend for those championships is what we're here to do.
Now, I sort of want to learn more about your background. So I was just wanting to ask and start sort of from the beginning and sort of work all the way up to where you are now. So where are you from? How did you start playing lacrosse? And like, I guess after your playing career with Lynchburg, how did you become sort of a coach?
So I'm from Westminster, Maryland, and field hockey was my main sport. I played field hockey and ran track. We didn't have lacrosse in high school initially. Come my junior year, they added lacrosse and they were recruiting track athletes because back in the day it was 12v12 the whole field. There were no boundaries, no lines. And so I had my first experience with lacrosse my junior year. And then my senior year in field hockey, I tore my ACL. So I didn't get to compete in sports my senior year. And in doing that, my county was starting a rec program for lacrosse. And I decided to coach. And so I had to read a book to learn lacrosse because I'd only played it for a year and teach it to these little kids. And man, I value coaching so much because when you're teaching it, then you get on the field and now you can implement it as a player. So there was so much value in that. I had the opportunity to go on to Lynchburg College. Again, I wasn't sure if I would be skilled enough to play at the Division three level, even because I had been off with my ACL for a year. My goal was to play in the Olympics for field hockey, so that was my mission. That was my primary focus. And Lynchburg field hockey had really contended at national level. I got to study abroad in Australia and play field hockey over there to help reach that goal. But along the way, I'm playing this spring sport and I'm evolving. I'm going from defense because I can't do anything with my stick to midfield and then eventually progressing to attack. And I just fell in love with the game because I'm an athlete by nature. I was a middle distance runner. So there's a lot you can do with running in this game, even if you don't have the strongest skills. And I really enjoyed it. When I ended up graduating, I was going into agency or counselor education, and I was finishing my master's degree. I went to Virginia Tech and then finishing that up in to be a middle or high school guidance counselor or addictions counselor, something in the counseling realm. And my college coach calls me Enza Steele, and she says, I've lined you up for interviews for jobs, for college coaching jobs, and you're going to be a college coach. And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to be a guidance counselor, or, I'm doing that. She's like, no, you're going to be a coach. And, when your coach tells you something, you just kind of like, okay, yes, yes, ma'am. And she's an amazing, amazing, legendary mentor and coach to me. She has over 900 wins in both field hockey and lacrosse, and she was my leader, my mentor, and so I trusted her, and I took the interview at Oberlin College and was offered a head coaching position at 23 years old, and I guess it's history. I've been a coach ever since, and I guess she knew my calling, and that's why in my leadership as a coach, mentorship is at the heart of what I do, because I have people that stood beside me to challenge me on the field, but also wanted me to be successful in my life, and I value that as well as a coach.
Now, you've coached at a few schools before coming to USF, but most notably, you coached at Jacksonville where you had a lot of success. And I did want to ask you, just looking at all the accomplishments you've had with that school, what's like the thing that you're most proud of looking back at your time at Jacksonville?
There's so many things. I think when I look back, I just realize the importance of the people. You know, it we had staffs that were head coaches in nature. I mean, that's why I'm working with them currently. I've had just wonderful people that could see a vision and really step in to help build the program from scratch. We have players that built a lot of belief, and we had a supportive system around us of administrators and parents that wanted the program to be successful. And so that to me is the how. Like you have to have the right people in the right place doing the right things. And as much as I might get the accolade, I turn that over to the players and everybody else, because my part of my leadership has a role and has an importance, but without all those other pieces, it's just a a mark in a record book. And so I want to give credit where it's due. Some of my other favorite memories, was just recruiting our first class. I still have a picture with their names on it in my office today. Being able to, beat that first top 20 team, where then they saw that they could do it. Being able to win that first conference championship and knowing that we had a model of recruiting where we were, developing players to be able to then play at the top 20 level, just give it some time. And watching that transformation of recruiting and that process take place is so incredible. I mean, beating a top 5 team against Florida was a really great moment. It really propelled our team to that next level as a mid-major program. And the icing on the cake was, my last game was Stanford beating them 20-9, and they touted, my associate head coach who's here, and she was the defensive coordinator, and just a wonderful body of players that they had recruited. So watching that come to a full circle moment from all those years of development and commitment, we built a facility there, being able to be a part of that ground level and a part of fundraising and building that was so special. And, it was really an amazing journey, and, one that I still am very fond of and will always have in my heart.
Now, after you helped build that program with Jacksonville, I'm just curious, like, what made you want to go to USF and try to build another program like you did there?
Well, it wasn't anything I had thought about. Um, I mean, I was anticipating retiring there and riding that out, and you take 15 years to grow and build something, you're kind of in it to win it. When Michael Kelly had reached out to my athletic director, he was like, good luck, but she's not going to be interested. And I wasn't, I wasn't necessarily looking, there wasn't anything wrong with my situation. Um, because I love growing the sport, it was an opportunity to just see like, oh, what's another Florida school doing? Like let me see what the state of lacrosse is going to be there. I've always been supportive of the growth. So, took the opportunity to check it out. And what I realized was that what they were doing here at this university, it was really on the rise. And it was the same thing I had seen at JU when you take a president, your athletics director, your chairman of the trustees that are all on that same page for athletics programs, then and you see this upward trajectory. They were building honors colleges, wellness centers, like their facilities for athletics was, a big vision for the continued growth of this. Usually something's going on well, and I wanted to get to the bottom of what that was, and it really revolved around Michael Kelly's leadership. And, he really values women and men's sports, and he wants to see all of his teams successful. One of the things that really stood out to me was when the last time I had been to Tampa was when my husband Paul was coaching in the Super Bowl with the Ravens. And I was like, what's Champa Bay? What does that mean? And just seeing the whole city turned into this athletics entity. And wow, I mean, if you're a sports person, you love Tampa, right? There, you got Stanley Cup, champions, you've got just surround, and USF was in the pool of that kind of branding. So that was really cool to see the brand at like tied in with these professional brands in a wonderful city. And then, their vision for lacrosse was Michael had grown up in DC area and he had gone to all those national championships and he loves lacrosse. So he wanted to really put USF on a national stage and wanted to really bring a sport that he loved, that he knew would be a great asset to this school. Becoming an AAU school, one of the top schools academically in the country. Well, women's lacrosse players, they gravitate to the academic piece. So being able to recruit to that, I was like, wow, this is going to be wonderful. So as I prayed over it, all I can say was a God thing. I had no direction in terms of nothing that anybody said, whether it was to retain me or to make me go. I prayed about it when kind of the Red Sea parts and you're like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to walk through here. That was the moment that I had that I knew the vision for my future and my next steps was to grow another program. And I can't tell you much more than what was attractive to me about it. But another thing that really stood out to me was they have a program called Enhancing You. And it's a personal development program for athletes where they get paired with a mentor their sophomore year. And they have a whole system in place for leadership development, mentorship, and personal skills. And at the heart of leadership, again, I want these women to walk out of here owning their careers and being women of leadership and wanting to do what they want to do to fulfill their passion and their purpose. And this athletics department invested resources in this model. And this was so important to me in my final decision making. I remember that group saying, why are you so passionate about this? Like, we never have coaches that really care as much about that side of it. It's always winning on the field and everything on the field. And I think I have to say, it's just the role models that I've had in my life that have made me value both equally.
Now, one thing I did notice about your team, and you sort of talked about this in the beginning of the episode, is how you have a good mix of like transfers and recruits. And I know that the transfer portal has been sort of a big conversation in college athletics lately. So I'm curious like how you try to utilize that and how you identify players to come to USF from the transfer portal.
The transfer portal has been great. We didn't have that back when we started at JU, and um, the value of it was you have to find the right leadership, right? These are kids that are coming from another experience. So we have pillars on our team, and those pillars are family, love, trust, lead, serve, and faith. And so we had to like pretty much show them the culture we were trying to build. You have to have faith in what you're doing. It can be religious. It doesn't have to be, you have to believe that you can win championships, whether you have 28 brand new first years that have never played or 28 transfer portal kids. Like this is ultimately the belief is so important to find. You have to find these transfers who say, I want to be trendsetters. I want to create a legacy. I want leadership. So that was another criteria. And then our other criteria was we wanted you to be proven at the Division 1 level or Division 2 or Division 3 level. Like you have to show up having had success. And we weren't sure if we'd find anybody that was on the field that wanted to stop playing and train for a year. That's a big ask. But we found a great group of women who really bought into our pillars, our values as a team, and wanted that experience to lead. And they are doing it. I mean, they set the standards on the team, they run the team, they value people and relationships, they bring energy every day, and they leave no stone unturned. So now all these new players get to one, learn from them, get to have them as role models, but also they live the standards and all of them. And when you have a group of people doing that, you're just going to take those young kids and they're going to come right up with it. And that's what I'm seeing happening because of the transfer portal. And to recruit to it, it's pretty easy in terms of what you have to offer. The commitment to facilities being world class or world class education, Tampa Bay. I mean, easy hub to, get international, flights, domestic flights. And then you have a culture of this amazing transformational relationships, not transactions. And you're supported by an athletics department that wants you to succeed. You're building a amazing stadium where you can host Final Fours. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So at least it gets the attention. The brand now, we were able to get the brand out the last 3 years. Like when I was first in the airport recruiting, no one knew I was a coach because they didn't know this Bull U brand, and it's a pretty cool brand. So we've been able to build the brand and grow the fan base. That was a huge goal of ours in year one was let's get out in the community in our exhibition year and build our fan base. So we have player ambassadors every game, and we want to be the community team. So that's kind of how we've evolved with the transfer portal and some of the goals that we had for them coming here.
Yeah, and one particular transfer I want to ask you about is Maggie Newton, who came from Mercyhurst. She's been one of your top goal scorers this season. What makes her a great attacker, and like talk about what she sort of meant for your team?
Maggie is a great person and leader and player. She's a great student, athlete. I think what makes Maggie so exceptional is she rises to the level of play. She has an uncanny work ethic, but she also does the other little details right. She really values recovery. She values fueling, to help support her journey as an athlete. She values leadership. She's, was involved in leadership development opportunities that the school had to offer. She is always leveraging every human and other resource available to her. She just got into a master's program because, she's just an amazing student. And so she's high performing in all areas of her life. And she brings that standard onto the field with people around her. We talk about offense being one person scoring the goal and six other people creating the scoring opportunity. And she knows that better than anybody. And she's able to help facilitate that teamwork because that's who she is. And so Maggie, brings a very um, crafty off-ball game. She's very sneaky. She's very smart in that off-ball game. But she also has the ability to be that point guard and direct people around her and build people up and hold them accountable. So she just has a little bit of everything that a person and a professional athlete honestly would value. And that's what makes her so successful on and off the field.
Now, like I mentioned in the intro, one thing I was curious to ask you was you've had some of the best scoring offenses in NCAA history. I'm curious, like, what you think you do different from other coaches from a tactical standpoint that leads to more goals.
Well, our system, our style of play, I love the run and gun style of play. I think it's been a lost art in the men's and women's game to some extent. And, when I first fell in love with the game, it was that. It was up and down the field. We didn't, just settle it and stall and, we're trying to get on TV, we're trying to grow the game. So I found that if you can find really good speedy players and you can put them in a system that accentuates that transition game, which is, when we say let's play 3v2s, everyone gets excited. The man up, man down game is a spectacular game to watch. So we have inserted this Loyola Marymount basketball run and gun guru of go back in the 70s basketball style of play. And it's fun to play, it's demanding, it's taxing. We have to recruit to it, but our goal is to get 40 plus shots a game. And that's our goal. However, we get those possessions, we really don't care. We expect goals to be scored on us. Keeping them under 10 has been a just real gift, having a great goalkeeper and defense to be able to do that. But our system demands that we just get the ball to our attack however we can and we keep shooting. And we know if we hit a certain percentage, our formula, we hit a certain percent, stats don't lie, the formulas don't lie on how you win games. Very rarely. I would say maybe 5 times the formula has failed us. But when you look at your shooting percentages and your shooting efficiency and your save, your ability to get stops, and then those possessions, it should tell you the story of the game. So that's really what we're trying to do to maintain that style, and that's what it requires us to do to win games. So that's why you see it statistically speaking.
Now, the last question I want to ask you, Coach McCord, is the facilities that USF have for lacrosse are amazing. I've seen some of the pictures. Just talk about those and like how it's helped with player development.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I guess Tampa's like the lightning capital of the world or something like that. But having the indoor facility, right, is wonderful because you get that full field space in the heat or when there is bad weather conditions, and that's been transformational. I mean, Corbett Stadium is a wonderful stadium to be able to play on. We had a locker room that was built for us, which was really special. And we have state-of-the-art strength and conditioning. We're building recovery that's second to none. We have so many resources for our facilities here and what players can leverage. And, with the new stadium coming on board, it's just gonna accentuate that. And we have a Champions Dining Hall that our athletes can walk right across the street. For Tampa being in this big city, we have this athletics district. So you feel like you're at this school of 50,000, but you're in this small, like contained community of athletics where a lot of the bigger schools you're having to drive and you never feel connected to the campus. Well, this campus, you can walk 20 minutes and be at the dorms. So even though it has a lot of people and it's bigger, just athletics makes it feel so quaint. Like you can go from a softball to a baseball game to Yingling for a concert or a basketball or volleyball game and walk literally right across to watch a lacrosse game. So for our donors and our fans, it's a one-stop shop athletics facility, and we just keep growing our facility plan with the commitment of this university and Michael Kelly's vision. I just think that the rise of this university in athletics is going to happen. It is happened. It's already happened with a lot of our teams, and we just want to be a part of that.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Which coach should we interview next for this segment?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think I'd have to go with my former college coach, Enza Steele.
Okay.
She is a legend. I mean, I just got 250 wins and she's over 900. I'm
Wow.
sorry, but there is a secret sauce to the things that she's done and a formula that she knows how to build people and programs. And, you know, if I'm a coach, I'd want to hear from a legendary coach who's built two programs, been an athletics administrator, been a PE instructor. Like she does it all. And she was a single mom. So, when, there's a lot of women that are getting out of this game because they can't be moms and head coaches. So being able to keep strong women as role models around, female sports, I think is super important. And she's a big reason why I maintain in the game because she showed me how to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Coach McCord, for coming on our podcast today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time to share my story, and you're doing great work. So keep it up.